Hey guys, it's Mr. V over here doing a book review today for Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Before I get into my book review, I want you guys to know that I try to do a spoiler-free book review, so if you see me looking down, occasionally I have notes just so I don't give any spoilers away or try to give as few spoilers as possible. So let's get into the book review for Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. So, this book, Great Expectations, charts the progress of Pip from childhood through often painful experiences to adulthood as he moves from the Kent marshes to busy commercial London. So, the main premise of this book is it is basically a fictional biography as Pip, he moves from like this rural farm town to London. A few things you want to know before getting into the book is that this book was released in 1860 or 1861, so you want to know some of the old style English, and it isn't difficult, but you just want to be aware of that, and also the life changes when people were living in the 1850s type of thing. So you just want to know that before getting into the book. So let's get into the book review. So, I thought this was a great story. It was that I liked many things about this. One thing that was really cool is that I thought that this started with excitement. There was some criminal elements right from the beginning. And, that was a lot, I thought that was a lot of fun. And that overall, this was a fun book because the story, I thought, just had a very smooth feel to it, that it just flows very smoothly because it is basically the story of Pip growing up, and as I told you, it's almost like a fictional biography. It's almost like Pip, him going up past or going over his past life, so that's a lot of fun in the book. And, as I said, it had a fun start right from the beginning. But despite it having a fun start from the beginning, you should be aware that it did have a slower beginning in this. It had a slower beginning for about the first 1/3. It was a little slower. After the first 1/3 of the book, then it really picks up. But it did have a slower beginning when you take into account the whole story. There were still many fun events in the first third of the book. It wasn't just boring, anything like that. There were still many fun events and a lot of things were still happening. But he was using that first third of the book or so to develop many characters and develop the scenes for many things. And it is entertaining, but it is slower. Just be aware of that. But because of that, I want you to know that just so you don't give up on the book. You don't want to give up on this book because after that first third of the book, then after it really starts going, it becomes very, very entertaining. Because he basically, is setting up the first third of the book, and like after that first third or so, it shows how much Pip's life changes. Because at that point, he will move to London. He'll move from this rural farm town to London, basically a big city. And it just shows how he changes in that time. Not only in the beginning of like his life, how much he changes, but when he moves to the big city, how much he changes. Because you do wonder, like, what will happen when he moves to the big city? How will he change? Like, how will he treat his old friends in the farm town versus new friends? And how will his new friends treat him, being from a different area? And basically, how much the city life will change him, and that's a lot of fun seeing it. I'm going to give a slight spoiler right here. So if you don't want to see the spoiler, fast forward about maybe 45 seconds. But the slight spoiler is that, like, after he gets a little bit of money, and that's why he's going to move to London. He gets a little bit of money. And when he gets that little bit of money, he starts to, when he's still in his farm town, he instantly is different. He has a humongous attitude. He starts acting like a snob, and he starts acting like a jerk to people in the town. But then the people start treating him differently too. Instead of like shunning him and casting him aside, they start like just looking at him in a whole different light, being like, oh, you have money now, you're going to move to London, oh, that's going to be great. And they start doing these like great things. People treat him differently. And when you see this just in one chapter, you wonder, how will he change when he moves to the city? how what will happen. So I thought that was great, and it's just very fun, and it shows kind of like the city life, like how people in the city who have money are different than the people who don't have money, that were just farming to survive. And it just shows the difference in city life. And, even though this takes place in London, I know this happens in New York City, it happens in like San Francisco, it happens in many big cities, so it is fun seeing that. But it's also sad seeing it. Like, it's sad seeing the tremendous attitude people have in the city and how many people act like jerks to others who they consider are lower level to them. And it's kind of sad, but it's an interesting look on life, and it is interesting look on life because despite people being in the city, even the ones that have money, how a lot of them spend time not happy, not happily. They're not that happy, and there's many storylines that show this. One slight storyline is how basically everyone is trying to one-up each other. Everyone. They're all trying to one-up each other, and they do it in different ways. There's many ways, but even like how they will try to spend more money than the next person, even if they don't really have that type of money. They just try to do it just to make themselves feel better, and it makes them actually very stressed. So it's just a lot of fun, and it is a great story. And it's a great story just because I said it flows very smoothly, and there's a lot of fun events and storylines throughout the book. So that's a lot of fun. And another fun part is that the author throws in a lot of twists, or not a lot of twists, but he throws in a decent amount of twists in there, but he does perfect timing for the twists, because I feel that makes a difference about like when you give a twist to the story, when it happens. I think that was great. Now, some of the things I did not like about the book is that you don't know how old he is in the beginning of the book. Maybe like the first 20%. You find out that he's very young when the book starts out. You find out he's like 4 or 5 years old. But then after that, you don't really know how old he is for a while. And you don't know, and I think that makes a big difference, because you don't know is he 8 years old? Is he 10 years old? Is he 14 years old? You know he is getting older, but you don't know how old he is at times, and that makes a humongous difference. You act differently when you're 8 versus when you're 14 years old, type of thing. So that was one thing I didn't like, because not knowing his age in a story where they are showing he's growing up makes a big difference to me. But the biggest thing I didn't like about the book is one thing that Charles Dickens is known for, is the vast amount of characters in this book. It is good having characters, but I think he does way too many characters in this book. And some of the characters he develops very well, where others are very underdeveloped, because you don't need to know every character, but I think he could have cut some of the characters out. There's not 100 characters, but I think he could have cut some of these characters out. Because what happens is he has characters from like Pip's former life when he was a farming type of guy versus new life when he's living in the city. And sometimes they intermingle. Like sometimes he will run into someone from his former life, type of thing. But because of some of these aspects, I think even in the city, there's just way too many characters to where it can cause you to get confused a few times. So I think there was too many characters in the book. And, that was, I would say, the biggest knock against the book was how many characters he put in the book, especially considering he could have cut a decent amount of characters. Like, the main characters, but he still had way too many characters. And sometimes a character would disappear for 100 pages and then come back, which is why it can make it confusing. But that's what I would say the biggest knock against the book is. But and now, as for the writing style, I thought that he did a great job doing the writing, because he captures you in the writing from the beginning through the end. He really captures you in the writing, because the hours pass very quickly, just because he just has a very smooth flow throughout the whole book. And one chapter just basically and goes into the next. It's just very easy to continue the book. And I think that he does it with a great story, and he does great situations, and he just does a lot of that. And I think that his writing, that he set the scenes very well, and he did it with minimal words to where you can kind of envision it in your mind. And that's a lot of fun. Sometimes I wish there was a little more description, but for the most part, he did a great job with that in the writing. And as for the character development as well, I thought he did a decent job with the character development. I don't think he did a great job with character development, but I would say he did a decent job, because some of the characters he does develop very well. And it takes time to develop the characters, but sometimes he was a little too slow in developing the character, or he underdeveloped certain characters. But I still thought that he did a decent job with character development, just because you learn about the characters and you really get to know who these characters are. And it is a lot of fun because it just shows the main character growing up and the many changes that he goes through. It's just like in life, how many, how different we are from the time we're 8 years old to the time we're 18 to the time we're 28, and how we look at life very differently in that process. So I think that he did a nice job with that. Now, as for the ending, I judge an end by many things, but my main thing for the end is, of course, if you like it, but my main thing is, does he wrap everything up? I don't like loose ends. But I thought that he did a very nice ending. Like, he did a great job with it, because he doesn't have any loose ends. Like, he kind of ties everything up, and he lets you know there aren't loose ends. And the cool part about the end is that he doesn't do it in one chapter. He takes multiple chapters to develop the end with how many different storylines there are. He lets you, like, it's like life. Life doesn't just resolve just instantly, especially when there's complex storylines. So, I think that he did a great job with the ending, and I really enjoyed it. And, I like that he wrapped it all up nicely. But, overall, I thought this was a very nice book, that I thought it had great storylines, and I think the storylines had deeper meanings. And, that was really cool, because he had stories to show those meanings. And it makes you think a lot about these deep meanings. And there's people online that even said that they enjoyed the book when they were older in life because of those deep meanings and, those type of things, and the amount of thought process that goes through that, so that's a lot of fun. So anyway, I'm going to rate my book, give it my official rating right now. I always rate my books on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 is an awful book that you would never want to even read. A 5 is an average, and a 10 is phenomenal. If it gets anywhere near a 10, you should put that on your reading list for the future, because I'm a super tough critic, and a 5 is average, and it's hard to move up even 1 point in my rating system. But for Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, I'm going to rate this book a 7.5. which is fairly high in my rating system, because remember, a 5's average. But I'd rate this a 7.5 because I thought Charles Dickens did a great job of just developing the story. He kept you entertained throughout the whole thing, and it was just a lot of fun, and there were just so many great storylines to show some of those deeper meanings. And again, it was just a lot of fun to where I definitely recommend that you guys go out and read this book at some point. If you guys have any questions, comments, anything like that, please post it in the comments section below. I hope you guys click the subscribe button, as I always upload multiple different book reviews. But thank you for watching my book review today. This is Mr. V. Go enjoy your reading.